In a bustling airport terminal in New York City, James Thompson stood among the throngs of travelers. Dressed casually in a hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, he blended seamlessly into the crowd. To the casual observer, he looked like just another passenger preparing for a flight. However, unbeknownst to most, James was the founder and sole owner of Skystar Airlines, a rising competitor in the aviation industry. Having built the airline from the ground up, he was deeply committed to ensuring that every passenger received respectful and considerate service, regardless of their appearance or background. Lately, rumors had reached his ears, whispers of staff members making rude comments and treating certain customers poorly. Determined to uncover the truth, James decided to conduct an undercover visit. He frequently flew incognito, purchasing first-class tickets under a pseudonym to experience the airline as a regular traveler would. Today, he clutched his boarding pass for a first-class seat on a flight to Los Angeles, ready to evaluate the service firsthand. As he approached the gate, he offered a polite smile to the gate agent, who hesitated before scanning his pass. "Enjoy your flight, sir," she said, a hint of surprise in her voice. James noticed her reaction but chose not to comment. He proceeded down the jet bridge, mentally preparing for whatever awaited him on board. Inside the airplane, the first-class cabin was inviting. Plush seats, ample legroom, and a subtle scent of fresh linens greeted him. He settled into his seat by the window, placing his worn backpack in the overhead bin. Just then, a flight attendant named Olivia approached, her demeanor warm and professional. "Welcome aboard. Would you like champagne or sparkling water?" she asked. "Sparkling water, please," James replied, grateful for her friendliness. Olivia smiled and moved on, treating him with the same kindness she extended to the other well-dressed passengers. So far, so good. However, the atmosphere shifted when another flight attendant entered the cabin. Her name tag read Michelle. She was tall and impeccably groomed, exuding an air of authority that made James uneasy. As she scanned the rows of passengers, her gaze landed on him, narrowing with suspicion. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" she asked, her tone cold and unwelcoming. James raised an eyebrow, surprised. "I already showed it at the gate," he replied calmly, handing it over nonetheless. Michelle examined the ticket for what felt like an eternity, her lips pressed tightly. Other passengers began to glance over, curious about the delay. Finally, she returned the boarding pass, her voice loud enough for others to hear. "We have certain standards in first class. Are you sure this is where you belong?" Heat rose in James's cheeks as he felt the weight of her words. "Yes, I'm sure this is my seat," he responded, forcing a smile. Michelle stepped back, crossing her arms, a smirk on her face. "If you say so," she muttered before walking away. James noticed the puzzled expressions of the passengers around him. Some looked offended on his behalf. He bit his tongue, reminding himself to stay composed. He was here to observe, not to blow his cover. As the flight prepared for takeoff, Michelle continued to ignore James while lavishing attention on the other first-class passengers, refilling drinks and laughing at their jokes. Whenever she passed his seat, she barely acknowledged him. This was worse than he had anticipated. He had hoped for decent service, but instead, he was being humiliated. Once the plane reached cruising altitude, the meal service began. Olivia brought James a beautifully plated chicken dish, asking if he needed anything else. Just as he was about to respond, Michelle appeared and interrupted loudly, "Olivia, please make sure passengers who belong here are taken care of first." The words, "belong here," hung heavily in the air, and James clenched his jaw. Michelle's implication was clear: he didn't belong in first class. He swallowed his pride, opting to remain silent. After finishing his meal, James decided to stretch his legs. He walked toward the front of the cabin near the curtain separating first class from economy. Just then, Michelle approached him with a frown. "Sir, I need you to return to your seat," she ordered, her voice icy. "I'm just stretching," James said calmly. "Is that a problem?" Michelle stepped closer, lowering her voice but maintaining her hostility. I don't know how you got into first class, but I have my suspicions. If you don't go back to your seat right now, I'll call security when we land. James felt his heart race. Security for standing and stretching? He stared at her in disbelief. Other passengers began to notice, their eyes darting nervously. Was this really happening on his own airline? He returned to his seat, trying to defuse the situation. A few minutes later, an elderly man across the aisle leaned over. I'm sorry you're being treated like this, it's not right, he whispered. James nodded his thanks, grateful for the support. As if matters couldn't get worse, a woman from the economy cabin approached Michelle, looking worried. Excuse me, my daughter is really cold, she has a fever, and there are no blankets left in economy. May I please have a blanket from up here? Michelle rolled her eyes, raising her voice for everyone to hear. These blankets are for first-class guests only. Go back to your seat. The woman's face fell, tears welling in her eyes. James couldn't stand it any longer. Ignoring Michelle's glare, he rose slowly and retrieved the blanket from his seat. Here, take mine, he said gently, offering it to the woman. I hope your daughter feels better soon. The woman looked relieved and hurried back to her seat, whispering her gratitude. Michelle's eyes flashed with anger as she stepped closer to James. That blanket is meant for first-class passengers, not for economy, she hissed. I am a first-class passenger, James replied, maintaining his composure. It's my blanket, and I can give it to whoever I want, especially a sick child. Michelle's cheeks flushed with rage. If you can't respect the rules of this cabin, I'll have to inform the authorities when we land. A few passengers gasped, and Olivia looked shocked, trying to intervene. James felt a wave of humiliation wash over him. He had built Skystar to be welcoming, yet here he was, treated like a troublemaker. As the flight neared its end, Michelle continued to shoot him dirty looks. She attended to every other passenger with forced politeness, ignoring James unless necessary. When the captain announced the descent into Los Angeles, James noticed Michelle scribbling something on a piece of paper. Once the plane parked at the gate, Michelle stood at the exit like a guard. Passengers gathered their belongings, casting sympathetic glances at James. He took his time, wanting to see Michelle's reaction as he passed by. As he stepped into the aisle, she said stiffly, I'll be speaking to my supervisor about you, her voice loud enough for several passengers to hear. James met her gaze, giving a calm nod. You do that, he replied, keeping his true identity hidden for now. The next morning, James woke early in his hotel room, the events of the flight replaying in his mind. He composed an urgent email to his executive team, I need everyone in customer experience, cabin crew management, and PR to meet in conference room B at 10 a.m. There's a serious matter that came to my attention on a recent flight, and we must address it immediately. By 10 a.m., the conference room filled with department heads. James stood at the head of the table, arms folded. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. We have a major problem that requires immediate attention. He recounted the incident from the flight, detailing how he had been publicly humiliated by Michelle. As he spoke, the room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. This is not just about one employee, he continued. It's about what we stand for as a company. I want an immediate investigation into this flight and a review of the cabin crew's actions. After discussing the next steps, James revealed, the passenger who was humiliated was me. Shock rippled through the room. I travel incognito to understand customer experiences, and what I witnessed was worse than I imagined. In the following days, the airline implemented new training programs focused on empathy and customer service. James reached out to the affected mother, offering apologies and compensation for her family's distress. As the company began to heal, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. He continued to conduct undercover flights, witnessing the positive changes firsthand. On one flight, he was greeted warmly by the crew and observed genuine care for all passengers. However, he knew that real change took time. He decided to hold regular meetings with his executive team to ensure everyone remained focused on the airline's core values. They discussed strategies for improving customer service and fostering a culture of kindness among the staff. James also initiated a new feedback system, allowing passengers to easily report their experiences. This system would enable the airline to address issues promptly and reinforce positive behaviors among employees. One afternoon, while reviewing customer feedback, James stumbled upon a glowing review from a passenger who had recently flown with SkyStar. The traveler expressed gratitude for the exceptional service and noted how the flight attendants had gone above and beyond to make their journey enjoyable. This feedback filled James with hope. It was a sign that the changes were taking root. As time went on, the atmosphere within SkyStar Airlines transformed. Employees began to take pride in their work, understanding the importance of their roles in creating a positive experience for passengers. James frequently received messages from staff members who shared stories of going the extra mile for customers, whether it was offering a warm smile or assisting a family with young children. However, the incident with Michelle still loomed in the background. James knew they needed to address it thoroughly to prevent similar occurrences in the future. He arranged a meeting with Michelle to discuss her actions and assess her willingness to change. When the day arrived, James felt a mix of apprehension and determination. He wanted to hear Michelle's perspective but also needed to ensure accountability. He sat with his HR representative and a member of the training team, ready to listen. Michelle entered the room, looking visibly nervous. "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I made a terrible mistake, and I'm deeply sorry." James nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I appreciate your honesty, Michelle. Can you explain what happened during the flight?" "I let my biases cloud my judgment," she admitted. "I assumed you didn't belong in first class because of how you were dressed. I realize now that was wrong, and I treated you unfairly." James listened intently. It's essential to recognize that our passengers come from diverse backgrounds. Every traveler deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their appearance. Tears welled in Michelle's eyes as she nodded. "I understand that now. I want to be better, and I want to help create a positive environment for our passengers." After a lengthy discussion, James decided to give Michelle a chance for redemption. "We're going to implement a comprehensive training program focused on empathy and customer service. You'll be required to participate, and we will closely monitor your progress." Michelle's face lit up with relief. "Thank you for this opportunity. I promise to work hard and prove that I can change." As the weeks progressed, James noticed a positive shift in Michelle's behavior. She actively participated in the training sessions, openly discussing her experiences and learning from her mistakes. James felt a sense of hope. Perhaps this incident could lead to something meaningful. Eventually, Michelle wrote a heartfelt apology to the passengers she had wronged, including the mother with the sick child. James ensured that the apologies were delivered personally, along with a gesture of goodwill from the airline. The media picked up on the story, and James embraced the attention, using it as an opportunity to highlight the changes taking place at SkyStar. He gave interviews discussing the importance of kindness in customer service and the steps the airline was taking to ensure all passengers felt valued. As the airline continued to grow and improve, James remained committed to promoting a culture of empathy and respect. He encouraged employees to share their experiences and ideas for enhancing customer service, fostering an environment where everyone felt empowered to contribute. Looking back, James realized that the incident on that flight had been a turning point for SkyStar Airlines. It forced him to confront uncomfortable truths and ultimately catalyzed a transformation within the company. He was proud of the progress they had made and knew that the lessons learned would shape the airline's future for the better. On a sunny afternoon, James took a flight from New York to Los Angeles, eager to see how the changes had taken hold. As he settled into his seat, he was greeted by a friendly flight attendant. The atmosphere in the cabin felt warm and welcoming, a testament to the hard work of everyone at SkyStar. As the plane took off, James looked around at the smiling faces of the passengers, feeling a sense of fulfillment. He knew that by fostering kindness and respect, they were not just an airline, they were a community dedicated to making travel a positive experience for all.